All right, it's time, folks. After a month-long, or thereabouts, PragerU hiatus, let's find out. Have their arguments gotten any better?
Our prisons are crowded with people who shouldn't.
Nope! Shit arguments. Debunked. Goodbye! I'm kidding, of course. Sorry. I won't do that again.
Be there. The victims of a racist justice system. This is the popular progressive narrative.
True!
But it's wrong in every respect.
Not true. Hit me up.
Dangerously wrong.
Oh, shit.
The US does have a very large prison population.
Who the fuck is this guy? What are you? Are you younger than me? Are you like 18? What are you?
Not.
Oh, wow, wait, that's actually pretty accomplished. Deputy Director of Legal Policy, Manhattan Institute. But what is the Manhattan Institute? Rafael Mangual. This guy's young. Let's see. Is a fellow and deputy director of legal policy at the Manhattan Institute and a contributing editor of City Journal. He has authored and co-authored a number of MI reports and op-eds on issues ranging from urban crime and jail violence to broader matters of criminal and civil justice reform. His work has been featured and mentioned in a wide variety of publications. What is the Manhattan Institute? A conservative 501 non-profit American think tank focused on domestic policy and urban affairs. Well, let's see how this goes. Because I've got a secret weapon, guys. Are you ready to hear what my secret weapon is? I did my baccalaureate thesis on prison issues.
Not because too many innocent people are incarcerated, but because too many people commit serious, usually violent crimes. With rare exceptions, that's why most people are imprisoned in America. Period.
41% of convicted and unconvicted jail inmates in 2002 had a current or prior violent offense. 46% were nonviolent recidivists. From 2000 to 2008, the state prison population increased by 159,200 prisoners, and violent offenders account for 60% of this increase. I could probably spend some time looking through this, but if I had to take a rough guess, I would probably say that approximately half of the people in prison, half to 60%, I would say, committed a violent crime, which is a far cry from...
Because too many innocent people are incarcerated, but because too many people commit serious, usually violent crimes. With rare exceptions, that's why most people are imprisoned in...
With rare exceptions. Gotta watch out for them weasel word, folks. I would not consider approximately half to be a rare exception. There are a fuck ton of people who are locked up over nonviolent offenses. Like an insane number of people.
In America. Period. Full stop. Before presenting the facts, let me add these caveats.
Hit me with it.
It's unacceptable that any innocent person is behind bars.
Sure.
Punishment must always fit, not exceed the crime.
Kind of a meaningless platitude, because there's no objective way of determining what punishment fits a crime. So a crime that I would say doesn't deserve any punishment is something you would probably believe deserves more punishment.
We should do everything we can to reduce the rates of recidivism, committing more crime after release.
Yes.
And finally, everyone in prison should be treated humanely.
Yeah?
But let's not fool ourselves that our prisons are full of people who shouldn't be there. That's simply not the case. Let's start with those convicted of drug offenses, the source of so much of the mass incarceration myth. While it's true that about half of federal prisoners are incarcerated on drug charges, federal inmates constitute only about 12% of the American prison population. Almost 9 of every 10 prison inmates are in state facilities. And
what about the percentage of those state facilities that are filled with people who committed nonviolent drug offenses?
Very few of them, less than 15%, are there for drug-related offenses.
What about other nonviolent offenses? So already this is so you're arguing this is a rare exception, but half of federal prison inmates are there for drug charges. That's not even including nonviolent non-drug offenses. And now we're looking at 15% of just drug charges in state facilities. What about the rest?
4 times that number are behind bars for one of the following serious crimes: murder, 14%, rape or sexual assault, 13%, robbery, 13%, aggravated or simple assault, 11%, and burglary, 9%.
Okay, and of these, how many of these are violent crimes? Murder, rape and sexual assault, aggravated assault, and robbery are violent crimes. I think robbery is considered a violent crime. So that would be 14 plus 26, that'd be 40. That's 51% of the crimes listed here are violent crimes, meaning that a total of possibly 49% of crimes committed in state prisons are non-violent. It's so interesting to me how every time we try to get, like, PragerU gives us these data breakdowns, they don't just show like the total list of data. They give a narrative and then they show a fraction of the total data that supports that narrative. They never just give us the stats. Yeah, robbery because you have to threaten the person. Yeah, robbery is a violent crime. But burglary isn't because the person's not home.
In short, violent criminals make up the clear majority of the state prison population.
A burglary is... Wait, I'm sorry. Is a burglary considered... Breaking and entering into a dwelling with intent to commit theft or a crime of violence is first-degree burglary. Okay, but is burglary a violent crime? Burglary in the second degree, non-violent, is burglary of a dwelling without an aggravating circumstance. So it doesn't say burglary is a violent crime. What about first degree burglary? What is the difference between first and second? Okay, with first-degree burglary, someone has entered the home of another person with the aim to commit violence and/or theft. Interesting! So there are 4 degrees of burglary, and only in the first degree of burglary is there even a possibility of violent intent being considered, and yet we have lumped all burglary in as being a violent crime. Interesting! That's a sneaky way to play with data. I would be willing to bet that as little as perhaps a 1/10 of the burglary charges listed here are first degree with intent to commit violence. Now, I don't know that for a fact, of course, but this seems like a very, very narrow portion of the total range of burglary crimes. But hey, fit it in to try and prove your narrative all you like. Even if we added all burglaries to the violent crimes, that's still 40% of crimes that are nonviolent.
What's more, drug offenders who do end up in prison don't actually serve very much time.
That is completely irrelevant to the broader argument that is being made here, but okay.
Almost half are released within a year. The truth is...
That is completely irrelevant. Hey guys, if most drug offenders are released within a year, but the prison population of drug offenders remains stable, that should tell you just how many fucking people are getting arrested for drug offenses. The less time they spend in prison, the more people have to go in there to maintain those statistics. Think about that. If over a period of 20 years, a given prison has had at all times 100 drug offenders in there, that's 100 people who are locked up. But if the average person gets out only after a year, that means 2,000 people on average had to serve a sentence for drug offenses in there. That's a point against his argument, not for it.
Is that most criminals probably spend less time in prison than you think, even for the most violent crimes. According to the Bureau of Justice...
This is a complete pivot from the earlier argument. So the earlier argument was that it's a rare exception to have, like, for people to be locked up non-violently, and at best, he's able to indicate 60% of lockups are for violent offenses, but in all likelihood, it's probably in the ballpark of 52 to 54%.
Statistics, almost 40% of released state prisoners served less than a year in prison.
Probably because they were locked up for bullshit drug offenses that they couldn't be sentenced for long periods of time for. Vosh, 25% is missing, no? Yeah, because that 25% would be non-violent crimes, and it hurts his argument, so he doesn't want to show the entire data, list.
Even 20% of murderers and nearly 60% of those convicted of rape or sexual assault served less than 5 years in prison.
Okay. That this is a very misleading statistic without context. Less than 5 years in prison. What degree murder? That's very important. Rape or sexual assault? Those are two very different things. Rape, like when people hear rape or sexual assault, their mind instantly goes to like fucking alley, like gang rape or something. But if we're saying rape or sexual assault, this means, hey, if you like a giant piece of shit and you're in public and you like smack some bitch's titties and they fucking jiggle all over the place and you get arrested for it, you're out in less than 5 years. Like, okay, that sounds a little bit more reasonable, you know? As for the murderers, like there are different degrees of murder. Like, again, this is a huge like range of data that is being compressed into a very, very narrow range of percentages, so that this guy can make the argument that all of them suit his narrative, which is not the case.
What explains the short stays? Answer: plea bargaining. Most prosecutions never go to court. Instead, a deal is made between the defendant's attorney and the prosecutor to avoid going to trial.
Smacking titties is 5 years? I don't fucking know. Maybe it's less of, I don't know. Don't slap titties unless people ask you to, in which case do slap titties. But if the people don't ask you to, don't slap the titties. If there's some ambiguity as to whether or not the person you're with wants you to slap their titties, ask them, hey, do you want to have your titties slapped, you know? Sometimes there can be a little bit of ambiguity. I'll help you out, okay? If you're out down on the pier and you're walking around and you see like a cute big booby babe and you think like, God, I want to slap those titties, don't slap those titties. Don't do it. Because she didn't ask for it. And if you're having sex with your girlfriend and she's like, oh my God, babe, I'm gonna come slap my titties, then you should slap the titties because they were asked to. There you go.
These negotiations often involve the offender agreeing to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence or dropping or downgrading the most.
What if I don't want to slap the titties? Then don't slap the titties. I'm sorry. I was falsely assuming your interest in titty slapping.
Serious charges. As a result, a prisoner's conviction record often understates the crime that landed him behind bars in the first place.
Yeah, but that's just how our justice system works. What? Okay, again, this is another example of this dipshit who knows better, condensing a complicated issue in such a way as to make his point. So what he's saying is, because like 98 or some shit % of cases are settled with plea bargains, that means that people are like often serving sentences for crimes that are lesser than the crimes they actually committed. But what he's failing to acknowledge, and this is very important, is that the plea bargain system also means the state does not have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person is guilty. Meaning the plea bargain system is designed in such a way as to hasten the justice system, sort of like trial processing, and absolve the state of its responsibility to prove a case. Many people go to prison while innocent because they're pushed into a position where they have to take a plea bargain or spend years expensively fighting for their freedom in court. But that other side of the equation, where a ton of people are getting thrown in jail without defending themselves because they know they don't have the time, money, resources, or like anything else to prove their innocence or defend their innocence in court, that's being ignored. Only one half of the equation of plea bargains' effect on the justice system is being placed here, so we can all get the impression that actually our prisons are full of dangerous criminals who are being locked up for 7 months in spite of serial raping toddlers, and they're out today and they've got your name on their mind, bitch. But that's just not the case.
For example, an armed burglar who, when arrested, was found to be in possession of illegal drugs might go to prison not for his worst crime, the armed burglary, but for a plea bargain charge of, say, trespass and drug possession. But the media and the activists...
That is not likely. Like, that is not a likely case. It is not likely that a fucking... Bullshit, dude. Oh yeah, that happens all the time. Prosecutors will definitely settle an armed burglary case for possession and distribution.
Charge of, say, trespass and drug possession.
Trespass and drug... Oh yeah, absolutely. Prosecutors do that all the fucking time, dude. Hey, we got this criminal here. He literally, like, fucking burgled with a fucking weapon. What do you want to do? He's willing to take a plea bargain. Oh, let's just let him off. 2 years in prison, misdemeanor, trespass with drug possession, whatever, no big deal. That doesn't fucking happen. Or if it does happen, that happens incredibly infrequently.
possession. But the media and the activists don't
Wait, to be honest, Vosh is seriously overestimating the people who simply can't afford lawyers? Oh, yeah, sure, we can take a look at that. How many people use public defenders? Is there a, about half of large county felony defendants with a public defender. No, it's a huge percentage. Yeah, the Mondo for Punch guy's an idiot, but still. Here. How often are public defenders used? Public defender averaging 240 cases a year each. Jeez. Okay, I'm just going to put it this way, okay? Because I don't want to spend too much time, like, fucking looking up data or something, okay? If the average public defender has, like, hundreds of cases a year, that's probably an indication that their system is overloaded, meaning that a fuck ton of people need this. Generally, it's poor people who need public defenders, you know? Obviously, not, like, real rich people or whatever, but most of the people in prison are poor. So, it tracks. That's a large number of people.
tell us about this rather important detail. Instead, all we hear about is the poor fellow who's serving time for selling a small amount of cocaine.
Yeah, because that's, well, wait, no. Usually when people like do waterworks over people who are imprisoned, it's not drug sellers, it's drug users. I have never in my life heard somebody go, I've never in my life heard somebody go, it's so unfair how many drug sellers or how many drug dealers get locked up. I've never heard that. I've never, ever heard that. It's always users. It's always people who use the drugs.
This assumes, of course, that the convicted criminal does any time at all. Studies done by the Justice Department show that only about 40% of felony convictions lead to a prison sentence. Yes, many are given probation, sentenced to home confinement, or given credit for time served. Yes, many are given probation, sentenced to home confinement, or given credit for time served in pretrial detention.
Then there you go. Then there you go. The other 60% are given probation, home confinement, or given credit for time served in pretrial detention. Do you have any idea how long people can spend in jail? Do you have any fucking clue? There are people who have literally spent multiple years in jail without even a guilty conviction, just waiting for their trial to end. Because they can't afford bail, or they weren't given bail. Trials can take years, sometimes. So yeah, there you go. Like, what point is this supposed to be?
But most of the time, convicted criminals don't go to prison.
Yeah, you just explained why. What? Like, did you know 60% of convicted federal? Notice how he's only doing federal now, even though just earlier he said 90% of he said that 90% of the cases people in prison were state. Notice how earlier he's like, well, you can't use data from federal prisons to extrapolate positions on the rest of the prison population. They only make up like 10% of the total number of people in prison. But now we're talking about how federal convictions like have a lot of people on probation or whatever, and he like uses only federal data without state data. Actually, we can look up state data. I wonder how much he's lying about this too. State conviction prison sentencing rate. I have a feeling this is going to be a difficult stat to find off the cuff. How many convictions lead to prison time? Got you covered, homie? Oh, shit. But remember, guys, earlier, he was very, very keen to make sure people knew that the percentage of nonviolent offenders in federal prisons wasn't representative of the general whole. But now he's very excited to make a point that makes it seem as though everyone is just getting out of jail willy-nilly because of some stats on federal prisons. Very curious. Fascinating. I feel like I'm on my game. I feel like I'm calling this guy on every single fucking stupid shit he says. I'm feeling good today.
Do we really want even more criminals out on the street?
Yep! Because we have too many. We have not only the most prisoners per capita, we have more prisoners flat than any other country in the world, including the authoritarian CCP, including fucking India. Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I want more. Yeah, yes, yes, I do.
Activists say yes.
Hey, he called it.
Scholars at the left-leaning Brennan Center have called for an immediate 40% reduction in the number of inmates.
Well, considering the fact that the data you provided earlier indicated that about 40% or more of inmates are nonviolent offenders, that actually seems to track up with the data you're trying to mask pretty effectively, I'd say.
CNN host Van Jones, founder of the hashtag Cut50 initiative, tops that. He wants a 50% reduction.
That is 20% more based than the previous suggestion.
But if the activists get their way, the cost would be high and would likely be paid by the most vulnerable.
Wait, so when we say cost, we don't mean literal money, because the prison industrial complex eats a huge amount of fucking money, and we would save a huge amount of money by letting these people back out into society. Vosh can't do math. 10% is 20% of 40%. Wait, no, it's 25%. Nope, I can't do math. Never mind. Listen, I'm a sociology major, okay? Listen, I didn't pay attention in stats. Just whatever. Don't worry about it, okay? Sorry, I had to assign all my IQ to paying attention to all the stupid shit this guy's saying. I didn't have any left over to do the math.
Most crimes are committed by a small fraction of the population who primarily victimize their own communities. Here's an all too common example.
Whoa, 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 whoa! People were saying, let's reduce the number of people in prisons. Do you think they were referring to, like, serial murderers? Like, I love the implication. Like, hey, let's cut down our prison population. This guy's like, you really want to let Dave, the baby raper, out? You really want to let Sarah Z. Longnails, who killed and ate 17 people with her long nails? Like, no. Those people can stay in prison. I'm okay with that. Maybe there are other people we could let out?
In the spring of 2019, 2 men were charged with the murder of a
Oh, we're going full anecdote on this. We're going full anecdote, Andy.
Chicago woman who was shot while holding her baby. One of the men charged had 9 felony convictions, including for a 2004 second-degree murder charge. A January 2017 University of Chicago Crime Lab study found that on average, someone arrested for a homicide or shooting in that city had nearly 12 prior arrests. Almost 20% had more than 20.
Okay, so here's some important distinctions here. An arrest is not a conviction. An arrest can happen for a great many number of reasons. I would be willing to bet most of the people who commit homicide or a shooting in a city are usually working with some kind of gang activity, and gang members are very often arrested in batches in an attempt to try and get one of them to squeal on the purported criminal activity of one of the people being arrested. Being arrested doesn't mean being charged, and it doesn't mean being convicted. Big difference. This data proves nothing. Literally nothing. If you want to make the argument that we should cut down on gangs in communities, yeah, that's great. You know how you do that? End the fucking drug war. The only reasons gangs exists is because they need to mobilize to protect something. And the thing they need to protect is their income source. And the income source they're trying to protect is the drugs that get schlepped up from the rest of the world so they can sell it in their communities, lower the general quality of life while they scrape by a meager living off of the only economic avenues they've been given. End the drug war and invest in those communities. Gang violence will be cut down 90% in 2 decades, guaranteed. Easy. Easiest call of my life. Legalize those drugs. Treat drug addiction like a medical issue rather than a fucking criminal issue. Stop hyper over-policing these communities because that only leads to a greater cycle of violence down the road. And invest in them so there are business opportunities in these communities. So people can go work instead of fucking 13-year-old gangbangers having to go to their local drug lord because they need money because their mom has chemo payments that she can't meet. Instead, they can wait until they're fucking 16 and then they can go work at a 7-Eleven or a fucking Safeway or something. That's what we need, and that's what they need. This data proves nothing.
If we cut prison rolls by 20, 40, or 50%. It won't be politicians and media celebrities living in gated communities who will pay the price.
I love it. Again, what 20, 40, or 50%? I love the implicit suggestion like, oh yeah, we're letting people out. Let's let out the murder wing. And yeah, the rape wing. Oh yeah, that one. That's Bazooka Killboy over there. Yeah, we let him keep the bazooka, you know, behind bars, no ammunition, but outside it's America, baby. He can load that thing right up. Okay, yeah, you're out. You're free. You're free. All you pieces of shit who made your way in here because you were caught smoking a fucking joint outside of a parking lot, you're staying in here for the rest of your life, motherfucker. Now, maybe we release the portions of the population that we can statistically assure are very unlikely to engage in violent activity. I think that's good.
It won't be politicians and media celebrities living in gated communities who will pay the price.
And this is the liberal media elite bullshit. Like, ah, yes, these hoity-toity Ivy League graduates in their gated communities won't have to... This is some NIMBY shit. They won't have to suffer the indignity of living amongst criminals. Well, sorry to tell you, fuckers. Most of you live around criminals. Everyone across the country smokes weed. White and black do at same rate. Black folk get locked up 4 times as often for it. Why is that? You ask. Well, no matter why that might be, the inevitable consequence of this is a long-term cycle of violence and economic inequality that leads inevitably to more crime, some of which will invariably be violent. And racism. Racism, that's part of it too. Pretty big part of it, as a matter of fact.
It will be the law-abiding citizens in underserved neighborhoods struggling to get ahead who will pay. When it comes to debates about... Actually,
ooh, I did my baccalaureate thesis, months of research and dozens of pages of writing on the potential economic benefits of prison vocational programs. The idea of making sentencing guidelines more lenient and investing in prisons so we could give people the opportunity to develop job skills. All available evidence suggests that as long as prisoners are treated decently and given a modicum of consideration with regards to their development of personal life skills, their release into the community had massively positive effects. Now, this doesn't apply to fucking murdering Susie or whatever. Those aren't the people we're talking about releasing. We're talking about people with fairly low-level offenses, non-violent offenses, drug offenses, that sort of thing. You give these people job skills, you reintroduce them to your community, holy shit, you've got an entire new fucking boom of workers. Isn't that incredible? Your average fucking person, you have to raise for 18 years and put hundreds of thousands of dollars of education and food into until they're able to meaningfully contribute to society. You let a guy out of prison with carpentering skills, that person instantly capable of helping their community. Incredible. All available evidence, to my knowledge, unless there's some data that I didn't get a chance to take a look at. This was like a slam dunk for me. All available evidence suggests that the intelligent and peaceful reintroduction of prisoners to the community is an economic benefit to those communities, and those benefits increase proportionally the poorer that community is. Ah, excellent. What is this? 45% of people have been convicted for nonviolent crimes. Oh no, dude, idiot. It's just a rare exception. Fucking idiot. Everyone who's in prison is a murderer or a rapist, and any differentiation from that completely it's just a statistical aberration. You know, what are you gonna do? Dumb.
Citizens in underserved neighborhoods struggling to get ahead who will pay.
Now, again, this is factually incorrect. I literally wrote a thesis on this that I will not be revealing to the public because my level of writing quality is abysmal back then compared to what it is now because I have a bigger brain now.
When it comes to debates about criminal justice policy.
When it comes to debates about criminal justice policy, I could fucking crush your asshole between my thumb and forefinger. Who is this son of a bitch? Fucking Policy Institute? Hey, you want debates? Come on my stream. I'm serious. I'll flex it. Come on my fucking stream. I want it to be known. I don't care if this person's on PragerU and therefore 20 times my size. I don't give a shit. Come on my stream. Every single fucking thing you said here was provably wrong. This isn't some blonde, like, blasé, like, philosophical issue. This isn't like the right of the Enlightenment, conservative. This isn't some stupid abstract argument. This is hard numbers and you're wrong. I could beat you on every single fucking point you tried to throw up here. Maybe one day I'll get to see you here. My goal, my fucking idealized goal, this channel is now a vessel that I will build until it is tall enough, a Tower of Babel, that I can fucking chop it down at the base and crash it on your head, motherfucker. Okay? You have contradicted the research of my thesis work, all right? I'm coming for you. I don't care how long it takes. Got this person's name on my list.
These people, not criminals, should come first. I'm Rafael Mengual, Deputy Director of Legal Policy at the Manhattan Institute for Prager University. Thank you for watching.
Nice! Meme. It's important to remember, and this is like an addendum, you know, it's very, very important to remember that, God almighty. It's very important to remember that, if we're looking to reduce the total number of people in prison, and we're looking to make prison more humane and shit, we should also be making an effort to try and address the sociological conditions that lead to people being locked up. I've talked about this a billion times before, but if anyone wants to, like, improve the conditions of prison and lower the number of people who are in prison, an essential component of that is decreasing the number of people who need to be in prison. People are a product of their environment. There's no mistaking this. It is a fact of the matter. So, if we improve the environment, we improve the people. Who provided me that statistic on Southern disenfranchisement? There's a reason why conservatives, like that kid, and the people who give him his money, are so interested in maintaining the status quo. And the reason for that is because felons can't vote. A lot of them felons are black, especially in the South. I don't know the exact statistics, but somebody in chat posted them. Post them again, Damage Cortex. There are some states in the South where the total number of black people who are disenfranchised and unable to vote exceeds 20% on account of prior felony convictions. Pretty wild, huh? Now, there is no reason on earth that a felon should not be able to vote. Can somebody give me an argument for that? What do you think they're going to do? Legalize murder? What do you think they're going to do? Legalize rape? What, like, uh-oh, we let the felons vote. Oh, shit. Now, killing is good. Now, felons do not disproportionately value any particular set of policy positions except those which benefit the poor and benefit racial minorities, because black people and Latino people are disproportionately represented in prisons. And so, by disenfranchising felons, we disenfranchise those communities. Yeah, true, and they're counted in the census, so they strengthen the voting population of that district, even if they themselves have no vote. Yeah, Florida is also one of the 4 states that have significantly higher percentages of disenfranchised African Americans than the national average. In those states, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia, the percentages of voting-age African Americans disenfranchised due to a felony conviction are 21%, 26%, 21%, and 22% respectively. I imagine if we looked through other states, we would find a vastly disproportional rate across the board, though perhaps not to that extent. Keeping felons from voting is a deliberate effort to keep black and brown people from contributing their votes. And Republicans want to do that because Republicans are racist. No follow-up to that. That's the end of the sentence.